What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Birds Deep. We are back. Gene is back. We got a lot to talk about. And, coming off a stellar victory, maybe or maybe not. Is it Jalen Hurts' coming out party? You got me, the Godfrey, THWEGODFREY. And you got my man, Mean Gene, over here. Mean, tell him what's up.
Mean! Woo! Gene. What's poppin', baby?
We're back.
Even
Resounding
Jalen Hurts
victory for the Eagles.
Party. That was definitely Jalen Hurts coming out party.
I think
that was the best game he's ever had a professional athlete. There's no doubt in my mind.
That's true. I mean, I would not disagree there. Interesting stat that I saw put out there. Jalen Hurts is the first player in NFL history to have 300-plus passing yards, 80% completion percentage, and rush for multiple TDs in the same game, according to John Clark of NBC Sports. And I'm pretty sure he got that from someone else. So I think Super Bowl Nation posted that. 83% completion percentage rate. Hit Quez Watkins on a deep ball, which I thought was pretty nice. A lot of good stuff that I saw out of him that day. Really took a step forward. So we'll do our grades. I do think when someone ascends like that, I've seen games in the past. Michael Vick comes to mind, coming out against the Redskins on Monday Night Football. Carson Wentz. Can't remember what was the game for me where I was like, wow, he's good. But that being said,
Washington,
definitely
week
that
1,
game
2017.
Was it Washington? Was it Washington?
Washington, okay. Week 1, 2017. That game where he hit Aguilar across the field. Oh my lord! Yeah, the first one. Now the second Washington game was like was the Houdini act, the Mac Hollins touchdown. That was ridiculous. But the first one was ridiculous, absurd. It was down. Down in Washington. We're playing a game there this week, aren't we?
Against the Commanders, the Commies. What a mess up that was.
Terrible name. That's a terrible name. I can't believe they made that mistake.
They're a tone-deaf organization. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
Of course they are.
It's one of the worst in professional sports, but he definitely did a lot of things. So I guess we could, grade the offense and defense coming right out the chute, right?
I mean, what we did last year was Sirianni, Hurts, and Gannon. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that.
Kind of what I prepared for. I would like to grade them.
Yeah, Hurts, I would give. How could I not give him an A+? So I mean, that's where I'm at.
I'll tell you how. I gave him an A. I didn't give him an A+. I'd have gave him an A+ if they would have kept their foot on their throat. 24 points in the first half, 0 points in the second half. I can't give you an A+ for that. I feel like it leaves room for improvement. I feel like that we can still see a better game from Jalen Hurts, a complete game that goes across. I actually think that the Detroit game was closer to an A+ than this was.
So do you think they were running the ball a little bit more with a larger lead in the second half?
It doesn't matter because it's 24-7. It wasn't like they were beating them 35-0. They beat them by 17 points. That game was not out of reach. All right, so like after the block field goal that got returned, that should have got returned for a touchdown. By the way, Aaron Sipas is a hero. Or the dropped Irv Smith touchdown that would have made it 24-14. The one where he got it over Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's hand and Irv Smith just dropped it. By the way, talk about Irv Smith Jr. What a tone-deaf organization Minnesota is. You see what number he wears?
84.
Yeah. Retire Randy Moss's number. Like, what are you doing? That is absurd. But back to what I was saying. I can't give him an A+ when they score 0 points in the second half. I just can't do it. I'll give him an A because he was dominant and they never were in jeopardy of losing that game. But with that being said, you got to keep your foot on their throat.
Yeah. So after we finish grading, I want to talk about power rankings in the NFL where the Eagles are placing that now. Sirianni, I would have liked to see him keep the foot on the gas. I think he got a little conservative in the second half. So I agree with you there. So I'm going to give him an A, not an A+, because of that. I do think that, I do agree with you there. I was going to go more on the downturn of the grade on the coach on that one. I think they should have been more aggressive in their play calling, in my opinion, in the second half, and I think they started getting uh, conservative.
Sean, are you trolling? Sean Cerrone said Hurts is a bum. Better start
He's a
starting
Pittsburgh
Minshew
Steelers
if you
fan.
want to win the division.
He's definitely
Okay, he's
trolling.
got Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, he's a
I don't
Pittsburgh
know what he's
Steelers fan.
thinking. Got it.
Pittsburgh Steelers. You better be worrying about the Browns tonight. Don't worry about Hurts.
Oh, Browns won by 13 tonight.
Mm.
But I
Make
don't
some
want to
money
get
on
too
that.
deep into that one. Oh, yeah, I got it. I took the FanDuel odds boost plus 3.5. Get even money. I think that's a lock.
Yeah.
I don't think you should hit his grade for that. I think it was more coaching and scheme. So I gave him an A because A is the second best grade you can get. I'm going to give him an A. They didn't score any points in the second half. Yeah, you're right. Coaching and scheme. You'll hear what I give Nick Sirianni in a minute. I get that. You gave him an A plus, right?
I give Hurts an A plus. Yeah.
I give Nick Sirianni a B.
You're giving Sirianni a B, you said?
Yeah, I gave him a B. I thought the team was well prepared. I thought they ran the ball. I think that as a whole, preparation was there. The team looked organized. I gave him a B because a couple things. I don't know if those referees in that game wanted to call too many men down illegal man downfield penalties that they can call in that game, but you got to see that they called it like 6 times. Like, maybe would knock it off, stop going downfield. And it's not like they weren't. Landon Dickerson was like 6, 7 yards downfield. The argument is they never call it. Like, there's never a time where they call. Like, linemen can go. The one play, the lineman was 2.5 yards downfield. And Aikman's like, yeah, see, he's really far downfield. And they showed the play, and it was like, it's 2.5 yards. Granted, you can't go more than a yard downfield, but that's very nitpicky. I felt like the referees were very nitpicky. But with that being said, Sirianni let his foot off the gas in the second half. The game plan changed. And I felt like that as a whole, they had a lot of careless penalties in the second half. So I gave him a B. Hurts got an A and Sirianni got a B from me. What did you give him?
I gave Hurts a A plus. I'm going to give Sirianni give him an A. I could go B plus A. It's right around there. I mean, I feel the same way you do about they were prepared well. They came out aggressive, but I didn't like the scheme in the second half, and we'll get into this when I talk to the power rankings later. The upper teams and the upper echelons of the power rankings keep the foot on the throat and the foot on the gas, and that's why they're putting up 40 plus points a game. So in the modern day NFL, I think 40 to 35 points a game is what you need. Not every game, but most of the games. If you look at some of these shootouts with some of the better teams and the weapons they have, the Eagles are definitely capable of it. If they ran the ball to success, then I'd be more okay with more running. And what I mean is a field goal, a long drive, something of that nature. And it was a very run heavy drive and they produced points. They should have on the field goal. Let's say that they didn't get blocked. You're still at 27, 3 points in the second half isn't great, and I need to see more results on the second half. Did the Vikings make an adjustment and shut it down? And that's a good question to ask, because the good offenses that are perennial contenders are going to shift within the game away from what the defense adjusted to. And I don't know yet. I'm going to guess, but I don't know yet if that's really what happened in the second half. I don't know if maybe the Eagles got shut down and they didn't adjust properly.
Look, I don't. Maybe my critiques are a little hard. Like the one, I don't think B is a bad grade. Like we gave a lot of C's out last year. We gave D's out. But with the Eagles, the one thing there's two things that let me believe that this team is well coached right now. So I want to give credit to Nick Sirianni. Two things that let me believe that this team is well coached. One, Jalen Hurts' first touchdown run. if you actually view the image, there's an image that you can see Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert at the bottom of the screen, and they are excited. And Devontae Smith was wide open. Smitty was wide open, but they were excited. They were excited. This team doesn't care who scores. They care about winning. And that's what winning football teams do. I think that's completely I think that's completely uncoaching. I love that by Nick Sirianni. The second thing, and one of my heroes of the game was Aaron Sippis. It's so easy to know that that guy's going to score a touchdown on that blocked field goal. But that punter ran full speed down the field and got his hand on that guy's ankle to trip him up. And the Vikings ended up getting 0 points on that drive. Darius Slay ended it with interception. And I think that is so important to know that 7 points got taken off the board by a punter that just didn't quit. He didn't give up. He gave 1,000,000% to stop points. So that to me symbolizes well-coached football team. So maybe B plus, maybe B plus. I could be swayed to B plus. I think it's a B or a B plus.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Defense wise, I think that the Eagles showed a lot better, obviously, than the week before. Slay had a big game. Kazir White had some key pass deflections. Defending, Edwards had some really good pass deflections in defending the route against Irv Smith, who was probably their most productive offensive player that night for the Vikings. And I saw some things I liked. They got Kirk Cousins uncomfortable. He was comfortable being in his usual bad primetime slot. Darius Slay was making plays, 2 picks. Is a hell of a game for any quarterback. And, that was a huge game for him to show up. And, national football audience, home opener, Monday night, I'm going to give, I got to give him an A. I mean, they held them to 7 points. A plus. I'm giving an A plus. 7 points, man. I mean, they just torched Gannon? The Green Bay Packers. So we're going Gannon, right? So I guess he represents the whole defense. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's things I would do differently, but can I have complaints when they held them to 7? Not
no,
really.
You
can't. A plus.
Jonathan Gannon gets my A plus. Yeah. Jonathan Gannon gets my A plus. I'll tell you what I loved about Jonathan Gannon this week, and I've been one of Jonathan Gannon's biggest critics. He sent the blitz. He sent the house. You have 3 premier cornerbacks and a safety that was a very premier cornerback that can stick people man to man. I don't know why they don't blitz more often. Slay, Bradbury, Vontae Maddox, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson can all stick people man to man. So it allows you to be able to blitz. Yeah. With that style. Listen, we talked about the first week. And I'm going to say this. This is a trend for Philadelphia Eagles.
Maddox had a pick
much
too, right?
better defensively. Yes. They are much better defensively at home than they are on the road. This has been the same for years for the Eagles. The 15 between home and road was 27 points per game given up on the road to 13 given up at home. Do you realize how ridiculous that split is?
Huge swing.
Like, that's absurd.
Gotta approve that.
I know it's not the same people, but my point being is I don't like if I didn't know any better, I would think the Philadelphia Eagles had like devices in like Minnesota's headsets and cheating because that's how much better they are at home than they are on the road. It's an anomaly to me.
Yeah, it was a good victory. I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought it'd be a little bit closer of a game, a little bit more points scored. But I mean, I can't complain all the way around. I mean, like I said, there are grievances we could have on it. One thing I did like overall about the game, in which the upper echelon teams do, and I saw them, Jalen spread the ball around more. Not that A.J. Brown's not probably the best offensive player on the team, especially as far as receivers go, but, teams are going to key on when you're hitting a guy with 13 targets a game and take them away. So I want to see Devontae Smith get the ball, which he did, which was very encouraging to see him get involved. Dallas Goedert, he always seems to be 2 yards away from a touchdown, but, he had a good game. And, Quez Watkins getting involved on the deep ball. I mean, to be talking about that for years, and it finally fucking happened. I mean, for years. Like, Quez is so fast. I'm like, "All right, well, who's gonna throw in the ball?" Well, Jalen did, and it was a good
That
throw.
route concept was perfect, and Jalen's seen it. That's, to me, the anticipation on that route concept. So if you don't know what they were running there, Dallas Goedert was running basically a 12-yard out, which is considered like a mid out. They were running an out pattern, and Quez Watkins was basically running like a deep post, but it was a deep skinny post, which means the post isn't towards the middle of the field, it's only towards the safety. So when the safety bit in on Goddard, Jalen Hurts seen that right away. Watch, which is why Quez was so wide open, because he threw it at the perfect time. I gotta give him credit, man. He's seen that. The route concept was perfect, and he read the defense well. To your point, getting everyone involved is huge, right? So AJ Brown is obviously the most dominant player on our offensive in our offensive game plan. But Quez Watkins is so important to get involved because he keeps the safeties honest. And if you have somebody that can take the
Right.
top off your defense, the Jackson type, Quez Watkins, it it makes the safeties, it opens up the middle of the field for players like Goddard and Devontae Smith, and even AJ
Yeah.
Brown, who's not a burner. So being able to get everyone involved, Goddard, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, and Quez Watkins, that's huge. Haskell even had a couple catches that looked good. So
Yeah.
I was very happy with the way they ball. And listen, they kept seeing Minnesota run a 4 shell defense, which is a really awful defense to run against Philadelphia. I don't know why they wouldn't get out of that. It was so bad that Troy Aikman was talking about on air that, like, I don't know why they continuously are running the same 4 shell defense. Both corners and both safeties are dropped in a shell and just allowing Jalen Hurts to pick them apart.
Yeah.
It was awful defensive game planning by Minnesota.
Awful, yeah. And, you know, they got waxed for it, right? So, Minnesota, I think people were overriding them a little bit because of the when they got over the Packers, and I'm not saying that the Vikings aren't good, but they're not as good as that win represents because for whatever reason, the Packers like to shit the bed the first 1 or 2 games of the season. 1 of the 2, pick it, and that's the one. That's the relaxed game from Aaron Rodgers, and, Justin Jefferson burned the crap out of him, but, he didn't burn the Eagles. That was another big thing, right? And that's what I heard all week, and I would have took the if you told me, I would tell you he was gonna be north of that game that he had last week. I didn't see that happening. They were ready for him. And they have Jair Alexander over there in Green Bay, but I think our overall secondary is better than Green Bay's. And I just think, you know, there's one thing that Gannon's supposed to be good at is preventing the big play, right? And keeping him in check was key because I think, Dalvin Cook didn't seem like he either had his legs or it's just early in the season or Eagles just bottled him up and he wasn't really going to be able to do anything. I thought Dalvin Cook was going to be more of the, the flame carrier of that offense that day, and he was not. So
If you like, I can break down why that happened. So
sure,
Dalvin Cook's most explosive when he can get a few steps under him and get his speed up. What the Eagles were running defensively was very penetrated run blitz style defense in which Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Devon Hargrave, like Brandon Graham, they were running essentially they were basically shooting holes. So they weren't trying to sack the passer right away. They were trying to cut holes to make the Dalvin Cook go east and west. So it wouldn't allow him to get his legs extended. If you noticed, almost every one of his runs, he had to shift almost immediately because
yeah,
Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, they were getting into the Minnesota backfield almost immediately.
yeah. And another
So
thing too about the
to That's why he didn't get rolling. It's not. I don't think it's Dalvin Cook. I think it's just the Eagles' defensive line is so much stronger than they were last year just by adding that huge piece. When you have a stud nose tackle like Jordan Davis, you have a guy that's that big that requires a double team, or he's going to get past you. It opens so much up. Like Hassan Reddick can come around the outside and was ran contained perfectly. I think that was huge. I think what the Eagles were
I'm
doing they won the battle in the trenches.
glad you brought him up because there's been a lot of criticism about how much he's played as far as how many downs, how many snaps. He's not good as a pass rusher, things I've been hearing out there, and he's a good run stuffer. It's still his only second game in as a pro, so you got to let him grow a little bit here, guys. But I mean, what do you think about those criticisms? Because I have heard them out there.
I question people's intelligence when they give criticism for a guy. Jordan Davis was never going to be a 13, 14 sack guy. If you believe that when
Right.
we drafted him, you're just sadly mistaken.
No.
He's a
Yeah,
huge
definitely not.
body that plugs the middle of your defense that allows everyone else to play better. I'll compare it to a facilitator, like a point guard in the NBA, in basketball. He is there to swallow linemen, to take 2 linemen with him every play and to plug holes. He's there so people like Hassan Reddick can get around. He's there so people like TJ Edwards and Kasir White can get around. He's not there to get sacks. And I don't care about his
Yeah.
stats.
He's not a Warren
Watch
Sapp.
football with your eyes.
He's not a Warren Sapp. He's more of a Haloti Nata type of individual, or there's a guy that I think of stopping the run. Oh, or a Vince Wilfork type that it's going to swallow up 2 blocks.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
and I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna say a ridiculous compare. He's a better version of both of them. He's better than both of them. As far like his potential is going to be better than both Vince Wilfork, Haloti Nada. Those guys weren't as quick as Jordan Davis is, and they're nowhere
yeah,
near as tall. So quarterbacks have to throw over him, which is huge, and running backs have to run around him, which is huge.
right.
He moves the line. It's huge.
Like a battering ram. you know,
Correct.
I I
Batter is
just
not supposed to knock you out. It's supposed to knock your doors out.
yeah, and plus on top of that, like people fail to see that when it comes to that position in particular in football because it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, so to speak. So if you're only living in a box score, you're not getting the whole story on the performance, and that's usually what happens with that. You gotta, and it's his second game in. I'm pretty sure he's gonna get better. I'm pretty sure there's things he can improve on. I'm pretty sure maybe he needs to get a little bit better on passing downs. But again, he wasn't brought in for sacks. He's brought in to put pressure up the middle too, not necessarily get sacks. Like, collapse the pocket so it's easier for the lineman to get in on a sack on the interior, on the inside of the tackle and between the guard, as opposed to the outside, which is a quicker route to the quarterback. So, you know, that's something again that's not going to show up on a stat sheet. So I would say, people need to relax on Jordan Davis. He is good. and
I
it's
will say
up.
this. I will say this. If you don't understand why the linebackers look so much better this year than they did last year, and you think it's just plug and play options with White and Edwards just playing better, I want you to look at Georgia's tape from last year and understand why they had 2 linebackers drafted in the NFL draft in the first 3 rounds. I can't wait to see what Nakobe Dean does behind him because he already knows where he's going to be. With that being said, I'm telling you, he is making players around him better. Fletcher Cox looks like Fletcher Cox again.
Yeah.
He's
Now you got to
disruptive.
block
He is getting after the
both of them.
quarterback. He looks like Fletcher Cox again.
And you got to block both now, so pick your poison on that one. Yeah, so I wanted to bring up the power rankings, and the reason why I'm going to use ESPN's power rankings. Everybody, has a few different ones here or there. The reason why I wanted to use them is because, after Monday night, a lot of people are like, "Oh man, we're Super Bowl bound." Not saying the Eagles can't make the Super Bowl, but the hype train is in full effect. I'm not saying Jalen's overhyped, but the hype train is in full effect though. And he's had a hell of a game. Did some things that we've said on this show that we would like to see him do. Hopefully he continues that. And, you know, ironically, the next game is against Carson Wentz, who is the chosen one before him. Timing has a way of having some symmetry here. And when I look at the power rankings, my question is, what teams are above the Eagles and where are the Eagles ranking? So, I don't know, Gene, you think I should start from the bottom up or let's go from the top?
No, we're gonna start from the bottom up. The Eagles are a top 7 team in the NFL. So,
Okay.
don't start from the bottom up. If you have the top 10, you can start with that.
So I got 10. They got Buffalo Bills number 1. I think we could probably both agree there, right?
100%. No doubt in my mind.
Okay.
They look like
Chiefs
the best
2.
team in football. They're my Super Bowl prediction.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
The Chiefs
And
2 makes sense. They beat a
Bucks
very
3.
good Chargers team, and they destroyed Arizona. The Bucks 3 makes sense, although I'll say something right now. Buccaneers are gonna get their ass beat Sunday. I don't think the Bucks are anywhere near as good as what their record will tell you right now. I think that they've survived really bad performances. Their defense has played well, but really bad performances from Dallas and New Orleans.
Yeah. I will say this, the Chiefs deserve to be at number 2, but when I watched that game, I mean, it was one mistake was the difference. That pick 6 is uncharacteristic of Herbert, and you got to give it to the kid trying to gut it out through the end of the game, and he still threw a touchdown pass with the ribs. He was like, "Yeah, sit down, Chase Daniel. We know you're not doing anything. Go steal more money." But the Bucks 3, I agree. Rams 4. I don't know if I would put the Rams at 4, but okay.
I don't agree with that.
The Rams.
My 4 would be the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't agree with that. My 4 would be the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't care if you have the Chiefs as your 2, right? We unanimously agree that the Chiefs should be 1 or 2, like right in that area, right? And the Chargers went into Kansas City and were beating them by 10 points. And it took a very uncharacteristic, by the way, it's so uncharacteristic that it was Justin Herbert's first interception in the red zone in his career. So
Yeah.
it takes a Justin Herbert uncharacteristic pick 6 for them to beat the Chargers. How do you have the Chargers any lower than 4? Because if they play in Los Angeles next week, the Chargers probably will be favored.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we're gonna readjust this top 10. We're gonna fix ESPN's top 10 because some of it's bullshit. But we'll have the Eagles land in there where we think they should land. I don't think they're higher than these 4 teams that we.
What in the world has the Rams at 4? Because they won the Super Bowl last year? Because I seen them get the doors blown off them by Buffalo and barely beat Atlanta at home.
And they were 5 last week, and they moved them up.
Them at 4?
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the thing about them, and I've been saying this all year, and, losing Andre Whitworth, they haven't really replaced him. That's a Hall of Fame level tackle. I mean, they ran the ball, I believe, to his side about 60+% of the time. So I don't know who's there, but it ain't Andrew Whitworth talent. That's all I could tell you. And you could tell by some of the passing problems they're having that the throw is getting rushed because the penetration is coming quicker. Don't drop that one, that clip, and it's coming hot and heavy on the Rams, and I think that's part of the problem.
Godfrey, slow down. It's a PG show.
Yeah. So I have the Chargers at 4. I don't know if I would have the Rams they're in the top 10, but I would have them farther down. So at 5,
who's next?
They have the Dolphins. So, you have the Dolphins?
If the Eagles and the Dolphins played on a neutral field today, I think the Eagles would win the football. I would have the Eagles above the Dolphins. I understand the Dolphins won versus the Patriots, and they had a miraculous comeback versus Baltimore. But I don't have the Dolphins ahead of the Eagles. I'd probably have the Eagles 5.
Me too. And that's what I was thinking going down this list. I would have the Eagles at 5 as well. And the reason being is because I know Tua had a great game. Don't get me wrong. Amazing comeback. I've been down on him. He did better than I would have thought in that game. But I just feel like putting them at 5 is a little hasty at this point. And I have the Eagles above them because I think overall the Eagles are I would take Jalen Hurts over Tua. Because Tua, they say he's accurate. And I get he had a great passing game. He's got 2 good receivers, very good receivers, very great receivers, but he's not gonna be able to use his legs like Jalen can if he needs to. He
Okay.
does not have that
Who's next? The Eagles?
athleticism that
The Eagles
Jalen
have
has.
to be next.
No, they're not actually. They have the Chargers at 6.
Okay, that's
We've
fair.
already adjusted
Because
that.
I had the
So,
Chargers at 4. I have the Eagles at
yeah, so
5. Who's next after the Chargers?
who this is who I would put next. I'll see you agree. I would put the Niners at 6.
No. They lost their
So,
starting
you
quarterback, and they have a good defense, but they have not looked great this year. No.
they
No
have
way.
not. All right. The reason why I put them at I I shouldn't say they're at 6. I think they're trending upward. They're probably in like the top 12 for me, like top 10. But the reason is
Okay.
because I think I think the offense is going to do better with Jimmy
Read the
G.
rest of the
Just really
top
think
10.
it is.
Read the
So
rest of
rest
the
of the
top 10.
top 10, 6 Chargers we just said, 7 Packers. I have the Eagles above the Packers. I had the Eagles at 8. They
100%.
had the Baltimore, yeah, they had the Baltimore Ravens at 9, and the Niners at 10. The Vikings 11. You know that's so honorable mention. So I have the Eagles above all those teams below we just discussed. You know, right below the Chargers, but above the Packers, above the Dolphins, above the Ravens, and above the Niners is where I have the Eagles. I have them at 5.
I think that power rankings are so subjective and they're so opinion based.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I think the Eagles are 5. And after the Eagles, there's a long list of teams that just have a lot of weaknesses and flaws. I think the
The
Eagles are a
reason,
top 5 team in football right now, man. They're a top 5
yeah,
team
and
in football.
the reason why I brought them
I'll
up,
bet you right now, I'll bet you the Lions have a way better season than most people expect. Did you watch that game versus Washington?
yeah,
I understand it's
I watched
Washington,
a good
but
part
they
of it.
dominated. And
Yeah,
when
I
Washington
think
got that game close,
mhm.
Detroit scored every time. Washington never had that ball within one possession after they had the ball within a possession. They got it within a possession, but they didn't. The Lions just went down and scored again.
Lions lost a lot of close games last year, and Dan Campbell's got these guys competing. You know,
Yeah,
it's
they're gonna win a lot
I
of close
think
games this year.
yeah, I think so, and they got some more talent on the team. You know, having a young pass rusher, Hutchinson, and you know, number 44, we call him Rodrigo. You know, there's a lot of improvements on this team. The reason why I brought the power rankings up is I wanted to talk about the teams that are above the Eagles, right? And the 4 teams we have above the Eagles, you know, except for the Buccaneers, are all in the AFC. Now, the reason that I brought them up is, you know, when we were grading them, one of the problems we had is no points in the second half, right? And you know, when you have the Bills and the Chiefs and uh, the Chargers, I don't know about the Bucks right now because you know all the injuries and how they're looking. And they're seem like they're going to run the ball in the second half. They have a lead. Their defense has really been carrying them, but they can pour on the points throughout the whole game. And to be in this upper echelon to compete with these 4 teams, you're going to have to score more than 24 points. That's where I'm going with this. Like, you know, the Bills are just like 35-40. We're going to get that no problem every week. Can't
Bulls
stop
get
us.
that in
Try and
three
stop us.
quarters.
Yeah. Chiefs, same thing. You know, I know, you know, they don't have Tariq Hill, but I didn't think they were going to miss a beat, and they're not. They're really not. I mean, Tariq Hill's great. Not taking anything away from him. I just think, you know, they figured, you know, we got a good quarterback. Andy Reid likes to spread the ball around in his offenses, so they got a bunch of guys that are above average receivers, and they're gonna spread the ball around that way and probably save themselves money too down the line as far as salary cap. You're gonna have to paying a guy $400 million, but um, you know, the Buccaneers we already talked about it, and the Chargers. I mean, you know, Justin Herbert, man, that guy's got a set of huevos on him, man. You know, uh, he had a busted up rib, and he came out there and tried to bring them back anyway. Still, almost recovered that onside kick and threw a dart in the end zone. And
So you're telling me the 4 teams that you have above the Eagles are Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen? I'll sign up for that.
yes, I'll sign up
I'll
for that
sign up
too.
for that.
Yeah, me too.
We got to preview a game. Let's preview
Yeah,
Eagles Commanders.
they're playing next week. Holy shit! Yeah, so Eagles versus the Commies. And this is in DC, right?
Yep, it's in
Or
Washington.
isn't it? Yeah.
In
So
Washington.
What's the spread on this? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I know you know,
Opened
Gene.
up at opened up at 4.5. It's at 6.5.
Eagles by 6.5
Yep.
on the road. No,
Yep.
Wow, it went so it said open up at 2 and now it's at 6.5. Holy shit. This is free
2 is
scores
the
and
look
odds.
ahead line. 2
Mhm.
is the look ahead line, which was released last week before both teams played their game.
Right. So that's why you got it. That's why I jumped that far. But 6.5 on the road is a pretty big spread.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, to give you comparison, Kansas City has the same spread at Indianapolis.
yeah. Yeah, and
Same spread.
so this is a thing where you got to look at the games, I think the Eagles defense could give Carson problems. He had it overall, I think he played and battled back last week, but the first half of the game he was pretty horrendous against the Lions. And he's got the receivers. He's got Samuel, which I think they're putting in the offense. Jahan Dotson's showing pretty well. You still got Terry McLaurin there. You got Antonio Gibson. So they have the weapons to compete on offense. The question is, where is this game going to go? I mean, do I have the Eagles winning this? I think the Eagles are going to win this. I don't know about by 6.5, but is this a letdown game? Do you think this is a letdown game?
No, it's not a letdown game. It's a short week on the road, though.
Yeah.
Short week on the road. Granted, it's not a far travel.
Bus ride.
Teams generally start slower. I think that playing against division rival, there's a lot to say about this game. I think this game is won on two places. On the offensive side, it's won in the trenches. If the offensive line can contain uh, the Washington Commanders front seven, or even just their defensive line, with Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, they have just all the dogs on that defensive line. If they can contain that defensive line, the Eagles should be able to score. Their secondary and even in their linebacking core, it leaves a little to be desired. I think Washington's been very good in in their secondary. Obviously, you've seen that last week with Amon-Ra St. Brown. On the
Yeah, they
offense
haven't.
or on the defensive side for the Eagles, it's completely on the secondary. See, the difference between Minnesota's receiving core, who is very route heavy, they run great routes, schematically scheme people open. Justin Jefferson, you got the jump ball guy in Adam Thielen. The difference between that team and Washington is light years of speed. We talk about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle being the fastest combo in the NFL, but I'll tell you right now, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson have to be the fastest trio in football. Terry McLaurin was a track star. Like, guys, 4.3 40, he's super fast. Curtis Samuel, another 4.3 guy. Jahan Dotson is no slouch. So with that
Yes.
trio, it's about speed. So Jonathan Gannon's, I guarantee you, playing on the road, he's going to play scared, bend but don't break, soft shell, and hope Carson throws him the ball. Where the Eagles have a huge advantage here, in my opinion, is our defensive line versus their offensive line. We should dominate their offensive line. Their offensive line ranks 25th in the NFL. I think that Aiden Hutchinson had a field day.
5 sacks last week they gave up.
3 by Aiden.
Yeah. Hell of a day for him. Another thing that they're going to have an advantage on is you could run on this team. 191 rushing yards last week by the Lions against the Redskins. 191 rushing yards. And I think
the
Eagles. Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I was saying that the Lions had 191 against the Commanders. So the Eagles have the ability to have 191 rushing yards between Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders. The offensive line is really good, and they're starting to cook a little bit better than I think they did in the first game. And I really think they could take advantage there. They could take advantage in the passing game too. Don't get me wrong, but I really think you could run on these guys and you could sack the quarterback. So if you can get Carson off his spot, and he's mobile, more mobile than a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff, but you can make him do some
But he's
things
gonna
that are.
throw you the ball once or twice a game.
Yeah, he threw one
He's gonna
last
throw
week.
you the ball once or twice. He's gonna throw the ball away. He's going to
Yeah,
give you opportunities to take the ball away. I
yeah,
thought
and
about this. There are three musts in this game. Must run the ball for 200 yards.
yeah,
Must. That means everybody combined. Ertz, Sanders, Gainwell, Scott must run the ball for 200 yards. Must get pressure on Carson Wentz from rushing just 4 or 5. Blitzing him is not going to help you because the speed is going to create a ton of X plays. You have to get pressure with your defensive line. Have to.
mhm.
Those are musts and must win the turnover battle. There are three musts. You have to win the turnover battle. You have to get pressure with just your front four, and you have to be able to run the football versus Washington, be able to control the clock.
Yeah, and the other thing too, looking at the recap against the Commanders against the Lions last week, one thing that I could see the Eagles doing is an end around with one of the receivers. Amon St. Brown had 2 carries for 68 yards against the Redskins last week. He was the leading rusher on the team, believe it or not. You had DeAndre Swift with 56, Jamal Williams with 53, and Craig Reynolds with 16. So they averaged no less than 4.4 yards per carry and up for each player that had rushing touches. And
I think Swift only
I'm
had
going to
7 carries.
5 carries for 56.
Yeah.
And he had
They're
2
they
catches for
limited him a
31 and a
ton.
touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, that 31-yard that touchdown was absurd if you've seen it. He fell
Yeah.
down, got up, juked 3 guys, scored a touchdown. It's incredible.
Very incredible. Um, you know, running the ball is the key here, and that is a weakness I think of the Commanders, obviously. And James Robinson had a decent game against them the week before that. So where do you go here? And Eagles should be able to handle these guys. I'm not saying the Lions are nobody, but the Commanders are having a penchant so far through the first 2 games of getting behind early and having to come back. They were able to come back against the Jaguars, not against the Lions. I don't think the Eagles are going to afford them that opportunity. And I think defensively, there'll be some turnovers to be had here. Offensively, I think the sky's the limit. I don't know, with Jalen being able to pass, that adds a whole nother dynamic to this offense where they're going to have to pick their poison, so to speak. And, last week in the game, I saw some throws where he kind of fitted in over a defender. I saw some anticipatory throws that, were better than normal than we saw, right? I know you saw that too, right,
I
Gene?
I think his
And
best throw wasn't caught. I think the best throw he made that entire game wasn't caught. It was a throw he made to Dallas Goedert that was in between 3 defenders that Dallas couldn't come
I
down
remember
with, but
that.
that ball was placed perfect.
That's
Like, I
one
think
I'm
that's the
thinking
best
of.
ball
Yeah, I
he's thrown in
remember
his
that.
career.
Yeah. It's
That ball was
that was a
placed
really good
perfect.
throw, and I'm really encouraged to see that because when you have a quarterback that's a threat to run that can also throw the ball, you know, you the RPO guys and everything, you're making a read on the run. You can throw it in there, you could see it opening up, you're anticipating that guy being there, and you're making that choice, and that's hard to defend when you're doing it well. So, he doesn't tend to turn the ball over a lot. Um, I don't see how the Eagles lose this, man. I have them winning, you know, 31-17.
So, I heard somebody give me a comparison for Jalen Hurts at his absolute ceiling, and it's finally one I fully agreed with. Finally. It's funny because you try to compare quarterbacks to current quarterbacks, like, Jalen Hurts, is Lamar Jackson, is he Cam Newton? Who is he, right? Josh
Right.
Allen, he's none of those guys. But the comparison I got, and this is his absolute ceiling. So calm down. I'm not saying he's this guy now. But Steve McNair is the best comparison I've ever seen for Jalen Hurts' ceiling. They play almost identical games, almost like a power run game. Uh, they they developed throughout their career as far as throwing the football. I'm telling you, man, that's the absolute ceiling for him is Steve McNair. And I think the floor for him, the floor of what he's shown at this point, man, I think the floor is Cam Newton. The
Yeah.
floor. I have the
You
Eagles winning
know,
this football game, but winning it close. I have them winning this game 31-27. I think it's high scoring. I would nail the over. I think the Eagles defense allows a lot of points this game. I think their defense gets a score. I think Jalen Hurts accounts for 3 touchdowns, 2 of them passing, 1 of them rushing, and the Eagles win the game 31-27.
yeah. That's yeah, I like that too. 31-17 is where I'm going with, but I like that. Yeah, that's a turnover difference right there, right? So maybe Carson's driving down the field, and that's where big play Slay gets the pick six, and he's gone, or James Bradbury, one of the two.
I don't think the
Can't
Eagles
believe the
cover.
secondary.
I absolutely don't think the Eagles cover. If I had to bet this
Gotcha.
football game and you're like $1 million bet it, I would bet Washington.
Yeah, I don't like. I'm sticking to my score, but I don't like betting 6.5 for a road favorite. That's a lot of points. I mean, essentially, it's almost 9.5 because usually home teams get 3. In a way, in my mind, that's how I look at it. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think I take the spread. It could be close. I think it's a turnover difference. That turnover happens in the end or not. But yes, that 7 will be covering. But who knows? Maybe I wonder if that spread goes up or down because of public money. It
Public
might go up
money's
half
all
a
on the
point.
Eagles.
Yeah, I think it goes up
I
half
mean,
a
it's
point.
already moved that much. I think the
Yeah,
fact that it's moved so much actually tells you they think the Eagles win the game. They're just worried about getting buried. They're
yeah,
trying to get Washington money. So, like, what you gotta be concerned about is when a ton of public money is betting on one side and the spread's not moving, or the spread's just or goes the other way, reverse line
mhm.
movement. This spread doesn't scare me because it feels like the Eagles, they're trying to worry about their losses, so they're trying to raise it as much as possible to get you to say 6.5 is a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
They want to
surprised if
find
it's
that.
7-7 hit. I wouldn't
I
be
wouldn't be
surprised
surprised.
if
They
it's
want to find that
7-7
middle
half.
ground.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you. They want
well,
to
they wanna
hit
try.
that perfect middle ground. Yeah,
They're gonna try.
I, this is going to be a good game. It's interesting theater. It Hurts versus Wentz, coming off Hurts's de facto coming out party. Um, so you're feeling good more. So I know I am. You're feeling better about him going forward. Year over year after that performance.
100%. I feel like and it's okay for a quarterback to progress. Like, I love "I told you Jalen Hurts could throw the football." Well, he couldn't last year. Like, let's not lie to ourselves and act like, well, like, the criticisms on him were unwarranted last year. He was terrible anticipating last year.
Yeah,
But
those people
what
are
have I
counterfeit
said
green.
every show that we've had? I like his character. I think he can grow. I think he has potential. I said those things every week about Jalen Hurts. I've never wrote him off, said he can't play. What I said was, at this moment, he cannot anticipate throws. At this moment, he cannot read coverage. He is getting better at that. And a perfect example of that is Quez Watkins. It was just perfect. He
Yeah,
read the safety perfect, and he put the ball exactly where it needed to be.
yeah, I'm excited for it. And
By
Eagles
the
are
way,
in
to
every
anybody
game now.
listening, I apologize. I apologize. I'm sick as a dog. You hear me sniffling. I apologize. I just wanted to let you guys know I'm battling. I'm battle tested right now.
Ravens are still better than the Dolphins. One lucky quarter. I don't know about that. Yeah.
I think the
Well,
Ravens are
that's a
better than
different show.
Dolphins. I think if they played next week. I would bet Baltimore Ravens again.
Yeah, I think they are. I just think that the Ravens for the last couple of years, whether it's be injuries or not, has had a very leaky defense. And that's kind of where,
Their defense
you
plays
know,
terrible in the fourth quarter. Unbelievable. I don't get it. They'll dominate and
yep.
play great for 3 quarters and empty the gas tank in the fourth quarter. They're awful. This is not the first time a John Harbaugh team has been that way. I do not
Yeah.
think that they're conditioned properly. I don't.
Yeah. It has to be something, right? Because you started off the game with a kick return. I mean, it's a free 7. Like, you're up by multiple scores and you somehow, listen, Tua had a hell of a game. I ain't taking anything away from him, but like, I don't know, man. Like they just looked like they were out. They were gassed and they were out. They ran their ass into the ground in the last like 5 minutes of the game, and they were waiting for this shit to be over. I agree 100% on that assessment. But I was just reading one
You
of
have a
the
counterfeit green this week?
my counterfeit green is we keep it to football, so follow me on this real quick. I don't know if anybody heard the Ben Simmons podcast, the JJ Redick. I'm not going to go into that podcast, but I think the counterfeit green. I talked about this last week, and 2 weeks ago. Gene pointed out it is smart for maybe the organization to kind of like pump up a player's value to get some trade value for him. But my thing is don't be fooled by players going to their safe space and going to a podcast that a player hosts, because you don't think they're like, yo, dog, don't call me out on this. That's definitely what went on with that podcast. And you hear it from football players too. And counterfeit green is, not getting asked a tough follow-up question, and go into your safe space. Players wanting to do that to kind of set the narrative. Do what you want to do. It's free country. But, things that he said reminded me of, football players going to football players podcast and trying to set the record straight on something and not answer the burning desire question in the room about what you did or didn't do. So that's my counterfeit green. Don't be fooled by that. And don't be fooled by people carrying your team's flag, wearing rose-colored glasses.
I feel like JJ. I feel like JJ asked a lot of good questions. I'm not gonna lie to you.
He
Disagree. I heard that podcast. I think he asked a lot of good questions. I don't think he did it in a. He didn't follow up on them hard, but he definitely asked. All right, so my counterfeit green, I have 2 this week. First one is Jalen Reagor. Come on, like you want to talk about a guy that left here, first round draft pick, overdrafted, obviously, and then talks about the game as a revenge game. It's a revenge game. Jalen Reagor is my counterfeit green. Darius Slay had more receptions than Jalen Reagor. Let's just continue the narrative. Jalen Reagor stinks. Second one, and this is the real.
He doesn't deserve.
This is my real one this week. My real one, my big one. Fans that are calling people out and saying, if you were honest about, I'm going to change their words because they're not saying, if you were honest about the way the quarterback played, don't jump on the bandwagon now. I'm a diehard fan. I watch way more football than you. I watch the Eagles from front to back multiple times a week to be able to see things, to be able to break down plays for you. Don't tell me to not watch my favorite football team because I have a different opinion than you and I'm not wearing green goggles. Jalen Hurts had a great game, and I will come on here. I will not criticize him for having a great game. But in turn, don't tell me that I told you could throw. All those idiots that say he couldn't throw the ball. He couldn't throw the ball. He's progressed on it. But don't sit here on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and say, oh, where are all those idiots that said Jalen couldn't throw? Knock it off. Seriously.
Yeah.
You look dumb.
I was going to do that one, but I figured you were going to go there. So I didn't do that one because I didn't want to have the same one. I agree 100%. I mean, listen, no one said, last year, his throwing was not even close to what he's doing now. And it was so much so that you were looking at Gardner Minshew in the Jets game like, wow, look what happens when you get your ball to the receivers. And literally, he couldn't do that with confidence last year. And he is doing that with confidence now. He's growing and progressing. But there's nobody out there that can honestly say that you knew he would be what he has so far this early in the season. You could have said, oh, yeah, I had a hunch on it, this, and that. It's a 50-50 shot when you call it that way. And here's the thing about that. I hope he sustains this throughout the season. And I'm not being a bah humbug guy on Jalen Hurts. I really hope he does because as an Eagles fan, that would be fantastic. I just, I temper expectations because we've been through this before. We've been through this. So I want to see him progressing. And then, the real fans are like, all right, man, if you're going to hold on to your take, those are the guys you want to call out. Like, I don't know if he's really that good. It's one lucky game. Those are the guys you want to call out. So that's anybody that's a real fan is going to see played a hell of a game. You know what I mean? And the real analysis is like you're wrong when you're wrong and you're right when you're right. But people can't. Here's the thing about it. Me and Gene are in this position where when we put our takes, they're documented. Don't come to us or me saying that you said this, and there's nowhere you can say and point to it. You said it. We're on tape.
I don't mind standing on my take. I really don't. Like, I'm very,
Oh, I know
I'm
that.
very adamant about my take, and I'll stand on it, and I'll tell you when I'm wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times before. Told you I was wrong about Carson Wentz last year. Stood on that. I stood on that. But with that being said, don't you dare credit my, don't you dare question my, my credibility, because there's nobody in this world that watches more football than me.
Yeah, no one. I wouldn't question his credibility. I mean, come on, man. Jalen Hurts is ascending. This is what we want as Birds fans. This is why it's Birds Deep, because we are going to go, beneath the surface on these takes and these narratives that are out there, and just kind of try to extrapolate them and explain them to you. But that's all we got for you this week, folks.
Extrapolate.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's all we got. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening in. There's a football game about to be on. I hope you put your bets in already, you degenerates. You probably did. I saw the viewer count go down. And that, catch the end of the show, the rest of the show, iTunes, Amazon, iHeartRadio, you name it, and we'll have it out there for you. And this is the Godfrey and Gene, not saying goodbye, just saying Birds Deep.